The first time she pointed at the men and asked who her father was, Maya Carter already knew she might not leave that room the same way she entered it. She did it anyway. 16 years of silence had hardened inside her chest, and the words came out sharp and fearless, cutting through the low music and the smell of expensive whiskey. "One of you is my father," she said, her arm extended, her finger steady. "Which one?" The private room of the Chicago steakhouse froze. 5 men sat around the table, suits tailored, faces controlled, power clinging to them like a second skin. Any one of them could have laughed, shouted, or ordered her dragged out. None of them did, because the man at the head of the table, the one they called the bishop, had gone very still. His eyes weren't on her face. They were locked on the small silver necklace resting against her collarbone. A worn coin, smooth from age, marked by a tiny, deliberate notch. Something flickered across his expression, so fast it almost didn't exist. Almost. Maya caught it anyway. But before we continue, I want to make a very special invitation. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and are enjoying my stories. And comment below which city you're watching us from. Now let's continue. Maya hadn't come looking for drama. She had come looking for the truth. Her entire life had been shaped by a question her mother refused to answer. Renee Carter worked double shifts at Mercy Hospital, came home exhausted, loving and guarded. Every time Maya asked about her father, Renee's voice softened, but her eyes closed. "He's not a safe man," she always said. "Some doors are closed for a reason." Maya learned early that silence could be more violent than shouting. The necklace was the only thing Renee never explained. She kept it hidden under the kitchen sink, wrapped in a cloth like it could hurt someone. On the back, etched so small you had to tilt it toward the light, were the words, St. Jude. Not the hospital. A church, a place, a memory. Now that memory sat exposed under crystal lights, and the bishop's reaction told Maya everything her mother never had. The man with the thick gold ring shifted in his chair, irritation tightening his jaw. "Who let the kid in?" "I did," said a guard by the door, eyes fixed on the bishop, not the man who spoke. That alone told Maya who truly ruled the room. The bishop finally looked at her face. His gaze wasn't cruel or warm. It was careful, measuring. "What's your name?" "Maya Carter." The gold ring caught the light as the man clenched his hand. The youngest man at the table stopped tapping his phone. "And that necklace," the bishop said quietly. "It was my mother's," Maya replied. "She hid it like it was poison." The bishop exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. "Your mother's name?" "Renee." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the air seemed to wait. Then the bishop nodded, as if confirming something he had spent years denying. "You're brave," he said. "Or tired of being lied to," Maya answered. A low chuckle came from the scarred man. "She's got guts." The bishop lifted one finger. The sound died instantly. Authority didn't need volume. He stood, tall and deliberate, and stepped closer. Maya smelled cedar and clean soap. He didn't touch her, but the weight of him pressed down anyway. "Did your mother ever take you to a small church on the south side?" he asked. "Cracked bell tower, cold pews." Maya swallowed. A memory surfaced without permission. Candlelight. Her mother crying quietly. A priest who wouldn't meet their eyes. "St. Jude," she whispered. The bishop's face went blank, not empty, sealed. "Then you already know," he said. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. The answer was there, heavy and undeniable, but fear rose with it, because knowing who her father was meant inheriting everything that came with him. Enemies, secrets, blood debts. Behind the bishop, the youngest man's phone vibrated. The scarred man glanced toward the door. Something was shifting. "You shouldn't have come here alone," the bishop said, his voice lower now. "But now that you have, you've been seen." "Seen by who?" Maya asked. "By people who look for leverage," he replied, "and children are the easiest kind." The room no longer felt like a restaurant. It felt like a battlefield drawn in silence. "So what am I to you?" Maya demanded. "A mistake?" The bishop hesitated. It was the first crack she saw. "You're a line I drew to keep you safe," he said, "and a line I failed to protect." He nodded toward a side door. "Come with me. If you walk out of here alone, someone else will decide how your story ends." Maya followed him because the truth was heavier than fear, and because some answers once found could never be unlearned. Maya followed the bishop through the narrow corridor without looking back. The door closed behind them, with a muted click that sounded too final for comfort. The hallway smelled of disinfectant and old wood, a strange contrast to the luxury outside. Her pulse stayed high, but her steps didn't falter. She had crossed the point where turning around was an option. The bishop walked ahead of her, long strides, shoulders squared. In this quieter space, he seemed older, not weak, just worn. A man who had carried too many decisions alone. He stopped at an unmarked door and waited until she stood beside him. Only then did he speak again. "You should understand something," he said. "Nothing in my world happens by accident." "Then explain me," Maya replied. "Because I feel like one." He studied her profile, the curve of her jaw, the stubborn set of her mouth. Recognition flickered again, this time heavier. "You weren't an accident," he said. "You were a consequence." The door opened into a small office. No windows, one desk, two chairs. A single framed photo on the wall showing a younger version of the bishop beside a woman with tired eyes and a half smile. Maya knew before she asked. "My mother," she said. "Yes." The word landed with weight. Maya sat before she was invited. Her legs felt strong, but her chest was tight, like something inside her was bracing for impact. "So say it," she demanded. "Say it clearly." The bishop didn't sit. He leaned against the desk instead, hands flat, grounding himself. "I am your father," he said. The truth didn't explode. It settled, heavy, cold, real. Maya nodded once, more to herself than to him. "She said you were dangerous." She was right. Silence stretched between them, filled with everything that couldn't be said at once. "Why didn't you come for us?" Maya asked. Her voice stayed steady, but something sharp trembled underneath. "Why did you let her work herself into the ground while you built an empire?" The bishop closed his eyes briefly. "Because loving you openly would have put a target on your back," he said. "Because every man I crossed would have seen you as a door into my life. And because I convinced myself distance was protection. You convinced yourself wrong." He accepted that without argument. "I know." Maya stood and paced the small room. "So what now?" she asked. "Do you expect me to disappear again? Or stay and pretend this is normal?" Before he could answer, the door opened without a knock. The scarred man from the table stepped inside. "Boss," he said, "we've got movement." The bishop's posture changed instantly. The softness vanished. Command snapped back into place. "Who?" "Salerno's people," the man replied. "They recognized the necklace. Someone talked." Maya froze. "Salerno?" "A rival," the bishop said, "and a man who never forgave your mother for saying no." The words sent a chill through her spine. "You mean—" "Yes," he said. "You're not just leverage now. You're history." The bishop turned to the scarred man. "Lock the building down. Move her car. No sirens." "And her?" the man asked, nodding at Maya. The bishop didn't hesitate. "She stays with me." The certainty in his voice surprised her. It wasn't possessive, it was protective. Minutes later, they were moving through a back exit into an armored SUV. Maya watched the city blur past the tinted windows, realizing how fast her life had split in two. One moment she was a nursing student with a quiet routine. The next, she was sitting beside the most powerful criminal in Chicago, learning the cost of her last name. "You're angry," the bishop said after a while. "I'm furious," Maya corrected. He nodded. "Good. Anger keeps you sharp." They arrived at a compound hidden behind a defunct factory. Inside, the air felt controlled, secure, too secure. Maya felt like she had stepped into a cage lined with velvet. A woman in her 40s met them at the door. Calm eyes, efficient movements. "I'm Eleanor," she said. "I handle security." Eleanor looked at Maya, not with curiosity, but assessment. "She's got your eyes," she told the bishop. He didn't deny it. Hours passed in briefings and hushed conversations. Maya learned more in one night than she had in her entire life. About alliances, about betrayals, about the way power survived by anticipating loss. Late that night, the bishop brought her to a private room. Simple, clean, safe. "You'll stay here," he said. "2 guards outside. I won't force you to speak to me, but I won't let you out alone." "And if I want to leave?" Maya asked. "Then I'll tell you the truth about the men who would follow you." She believed him. That was the worst part. As he turned to leave, she spoke. "Did you love her?" He stopped with his hand on the door. I loved her enough to ruin her life by being honest, he said quietly, and enough to ruin mine by letting her go. When the door closed, Maya sat on the bed and finally let the tears come. Not because she was weak, but because she finally understood what she had been born into. And that understanding came with a price. Maya woke to silence so complete it felt artificial. No traffic, no distant sirens, no hospital intercoms like the ones that had lulled her to sleep her entire life. The room was still dark, but her body was already tense, as if it had learned overnight that stillness here meant vigilance, not peace. She sat up slowly and let her eyes adjust. The room hadn't changed. Same clean lines, same locked windows, same invisible pressure that reminded her she was not a guest, but an asset being protected or contained. Her phone lay on the bedside table. No signal, no messages, no way out. She dressed quietly, choosing jeans and a sweater that made her feel like herself, not someone else's daughter. When she opened the door, one of the guards straightened immediately. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply nodded and gestured down the hall. Breakfast was served in a large kitchen flooded with artificial light, stainless steel, order, control. The bishop sat at the counter, already dressed, already working. Papers were spread in front of him, his phone vibrating every few minutes with information Maya couldn't hear. "Did you sleep?" he asked without looking up. "Enough," she said, which was a lie. He nodded, as if he expected that. "You'll meet people today," he said. "Some you'll like, some you won't. None of them will be honest with you." Maya poured herself coffee. Her hands didn't shake. That surprised her. "Are you?" she asked. He finally looked at her. "As honest as my world allows." Eleanor entered then, crisp and alert. "We have a problem," she said. "Salerno's lieutenant was spotted 2 blocks from the hospital where your mother works." Maya froze. "My mother doesn't know," she said immediately. "She can't. She won't," the bishop replied, but his jaw tightened. "Not yet." Maya's voice hardened. "This is because of me." "Yes," he said. "And no." He stood. "Salerno has been waiting for weakness. You didn't create it. You revealed it." They moved fast after that. Maya was escorted through corridors she hadn't seen before, down into a reinforced section of the compound that felt less like protection and more like preparation. Screens lit up with feeds from the city, faces she didn't know, names she wasn't given. "This is what power looks like," the bishop said, standing beside her. "Not luxury, anticipation." Maya watched men plan violence with calm precision, and for the first time she felt fear not for herself, but for what this world could turn her into if she stayed too long. Later that afternoon she was introduced to Luca. He was younger than the others, early 30s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He smiled when he saw her, but it didn't reach his gaze. "So this is her," Luca said. "The secret." Maya didn't like him immediately. That instinct came fast and clear. "She's not a secret," the bishop said. "She's family." Luca raised an eyebrow. "Those aren't the same thing." The comment hung in the air longer than it should have. Hours passed. Maya listened, learned, watched how loyalty was measured in usefulness, how silence was rewarded more than truth. She noticed who avoided her gaze and who looked too long. That night, Elena found her alone in the common room. "You need to understand something," Elena said quietly. "Blood doesn't make you safe here, it makes you valuable." Maya met her eyes. "And valuable things get traded." Elena didn't deny it. "Yes." The warning stayed with her. Near midnight, Maya heard voices outside her door. Low, urgent. She pressed her ear lightly against the wood. Luca's voice. "She changes everything." Another man replied, quieter. "She's leverage, and leverage can be sold." Maya stepped back, heart pounding, every nerve screaming. The realization hit her all at once. The bishop wasn't the only one who had recognized the necklace, and not everyone who called him boss was loyal to him. When the door opened a moment later, Maya was already standing in the center of the room. "Listening is dangerous," Luca said mildly. "So is talking too much," she replied. He smiled again, slow and calculated. "You're smarter than I expected." "I had to be," she said. "No one protected me growing up." Luca studied her for a long moment. "Be careful," he said. "Your father is powerful, but power creates shadows, and shadows move on their own." After he left, Maya locked the door and sat on the bed, breathing hard. For the first time since she had entered this world, Maya understood the real danger. It wasn't Salerno. It was the men standing closest to her father. And whether he saw it or not, she was already standing between them. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay on the bed with her eyes open, listening to the quiet breathing of the building itself, pipes settling, distant footsteps, the soft hum of surveillance systems that never rested. Every sound carried intention here. Nothing was accidental. Luca's words replayed in her mind. Leverage can be sold. She had grown up learning how to read people because her life depended on it. Patients in the emergency room, relatives in panic, doctors hiding fear behind authority. Human behavior followed patterns, and Luca had revealed his too easily. By morning, Maya had made a decision. At breakfast, she watched her father carefully. The bishop moved with controlled efficiency, issuing instructions between bites, absorbing information without reaction. To everyone else, he looked untouchable. To her, he looked like a man surrounded by knives he no longer saw. You're quiet," he noted. "I'm thinking," Maya replied. "That can be dangerous in this house," he said, almost smiling. "Then you should worry," she answered, "because I've been thinking a lot." He studied her longer this time. "About leaving?" "About surviving," she said. Elena interrupted before he could respond. "We intercepted a message," she said. "Luca contacted Salerno's lieutenant last night." The air shifted. Not panic. Focus. The bishop's expression didn't change, but Maya saw his shoulders tighten. "Did he say anything about my daughter?" "Yes," Elena said. "He called her a bargaining chip." Silence followed. Thick, loaded. Maya broke it. "He already knows you won't sacrifice me," she said. "That makes me dangerous to you and useful to him." The bishop turned toward her sharply. "You don't understand." "I do," Maya said. "You raised an empire on predicting people's worst instincts. Start applying that logic to the men you trust." For the first time, she saw doubt cross his face. Not fear, doubt. "She's right," Elena said carefully. "Luca's been consolidating support quietly. He's popular, ambitious, and reckless," the bishop added. "Reckless men start wars," Maya said, "and they use daughters to do it." The bishop exhaled slowly. "What are you proposing?" Maya met his eyes. "Use me." Elena stiffened. "Absolutely not." "Listen," Maya said. "Luca thinks I'm unprotected emotionally. He thinks I want answers, belonging, freedom. He'll try to recruit me or threaten me. Either way, he'll expose himself." The bishop shook his head. "I won't put you in that position." "You already did," Maya replied. "The moment you acknowledged me." That landed harder than she intended. He looked away briefly, then back. "If anything happens to you—" "It won't," she said, "because I'll be ready." That afternoon, Luca approached her again, this time openly. "Walk with me," he said, gesturing toward the garden courtyard. Maya followed, heart steady, mind sharp. "You're adjusting well," Luca said. "Better than most people dropped into this world." "I didn't choose it," Maya replied. "None of us do," he said. "We just decide how to use it." They stopped near a stone fountain. "Your father won't protect you forever," Luca said casually. "Power ages. Loyalty decays." "And you're offering me what?" Maya asked. "Options," he said. "A way out. A way forward." Maya tilted her head. "By selling me?" Luca smiled thinly. "By placing you where you belong." That was all she needed. That night, Elena intercepted another message. Confirmation, names, times. Luca was planning to move Maya within 48 hours, force the bishop into a negotiation that would weaken him permanently. When confronted, Luca didn't deny it. "You taught us to see opportunity," he told the bishop calmly. "She is one." The bishop stared at him, something old and dangerous rising behind his eyes. "You mistook patience for blindness." Guards moved. Luca was restrained without violence. Maya watched, heart pounding, not with triumph, but with clarity. This world didn't reward innocence. It rewarded awareness. Later, alone with her father, she finally said what had been burning inside her. "You don't just need to protect me," she said. "You need to change." He looked at her, truly looked, not as a symbol or a liability, but as his child. "I don't know if I can," he admitted. "You'll have to," Maya said, "because I won't survive the old way." Outside the room, Luca was being escorted to a holding cell. The war hadn't started yet, but the first move had been made. Maya learned quickly that exposing a betrayal did not end danger. It only changed its shape. Luca's removal sent ripples through the organization, like a stone dropped into deep water. Some men reacted with relief, others with fear, and a few with something far more dangerous, quiet resentment. Maya could feel it when she walked through the compound now. Conversations stopped a second too late. Eyes lingered too long. Loyalty, she realized, was never unanimous. It was negotiated daily, often silently. Her father had not spoken to her much since Luca was detained. He was not angry. That was worse. He had retreated into calculation, the place where emotions were filed away until they could no longer interfere with decisions. Maya recognized it because she had inherited the same instinct. The difference was that she refused to bury what she felt. The first sign that Luca was not the end came 3 days later. Elena found Maya in the gym, hands wrapped, striking the heavy bag with controlled aggression. Each hit carried tension that had nowhere else to go. "Your mother's been followed," Elena said quietly. The bag swung as Maya froze mid-strike. "By who?" "Unconfirmed, but it was clean. Professional." Maya ripped the wraps from her hands. "You promised." "I promised we'd protect her," Elena interrupted. "That doesn't mean no one will try." Maya stormed out without waiting for permission. Her father was in the war room, surrounded by screens and men who deferred to his silence. "They went near my mother," Maya said. No greeting, no hesitation. The bishop closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, something had shifted. "Salerno," he said, "he's escalating." "Because Luca failed," Maya replied. "So now he wants to punish you through me." "Yes," her father said, "and force me into a public response." Maya crossed her arms. "You won't win that way." "Public wars are ugly," he agreed. "Then stop playing by the old rules," she said. "You're thinking like a king defending a throne. Start thinking like a father protecting a family." The men in the room exchanged glances. No one spoke. The bishop dismissed them with a single gesture. When they were alone, he finally allowed his voice to drop. "If I move your mother, Salerno will know. If I don't, I risk her life." Maya took a breath. "Then don't move her," she said. "Move him." Her father studied her carefully. "You're asking me to cross a line I've avoided for years." "I'm asking you to end this," Maya replied. "Not manage it." That night the compound felt heavier. Armed men doubled, doors locked more often. Maya lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her mother making coffee in their small kitchen, unaware that her past had caught up to her with teeth. The next morning, Salerno made his move. A package arrived at the compound gate. No explosives, no threats, just a small velvet box. Inside was a hospital badge, her mother's badge. Maya's hands shook for the first time since all this began. "He touched her," she whispered. "He wants to show proximity," Elena said. "Power." The bishop closed the box slowly. His face was calm, but Maya felt the storm building underneath. "Get Salerno on the line," he said. The call was brief, controlled, deadly polite. "Stay away from my family," the bishop warned. Salerno laughed softly. "You should have stayed away from mine first." That was when Maya understood the truth neither man had said aloud. This war had started long before she was born. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far, and what you would do in his place. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills. 2 nights later, Salerno's convoy was hit on the interstate. No civilian casualties, no spectacle, just precision. The message was clear, but Salerno survived, and survival made him desperate. The retaliation came fast. Maya was in the secure wing when the alarms blared. Not drills, real. Shouts echoed through the compound as Elena burst into the room. "They breached the east perimeter," she said. This was never about negotiation. Gunfire cracked in the distance. Not graphic, not chaotic. Controlled bursts. Professional violence. "Where's my father?" Maya demanded. "Handling it," Elena said. "You're coming with me." They moved through service corridors as lights flickered. Maya's heart pounded, but her mind stayed sharp. She had crossed a threshold. Fear no longer paralyzed her. It focused her. They reached a reinforced door when a scream echoed behind them. Maya turned in time to see a young guard collapse, blood blooming across his shirt. Elena fired once. The attacker dropped. Maya swallowed hard. This was the cost. This was the reality no story ever prepared you for. When they reached the safe room, Maya refused to sit. "This ends tonight," she said. Elena looked at her. "You sound certain." "I am," Maya replied. "Salerno came for my mother to hurt my father. He came for me to break him. But he doesn't know me." Elena said nothing. Hours later, the compound was secure again. 3 injured, none dead. Salerno had vanished. The bishop found Maya before dawn. His suit was stained, his eyes older. "He won't stop," he said. "Not until one of us is gone." Maya met his gaze. "Then let it be him." Something unspoken passed between them. An understanding. Not of revenge, of finality. Maya realized then that she was no longer just his daughter. She was his equal, and together they would end this. By sunrise, Chicago looked unchanged. Traffic moved, coffee shops opened, the city carried on, unaware that decisions made before dawn had shifted the balance beneath its streets. Maya stood by the reinforced window of the safe room, watching grey light stretch over the skyline, and understood that this was how power truly operated. Quietly, invisibly, with consequences that only surfaced later. Her father entered without knocking. He hadn't slept. The stiffness in his shoulders and the careful way he moved told her he'd spent the night calculating losses he refused to name. "Salerno disappeared after the breach," he said. "He's gone to ground." "Or he wants us to think that," Maya replied. He nodded once. "Exactly." They sat across from each other at a small table. No guards, no advisors. Just a father and a daughter who had finally stopped pretending this was temporary. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "About everything." "You couldn't have," Maya replied. "You would have been telling a child how to survive a war she didn't know existed." He looked at her then, really looked, and the pride in his eyes startled her. "You're stronger than I ever wanted you to be." She held his gaze. "You don't get to regret that now." The morning briefing brought grim news. Salerno's men were consolidating territory on the west side. Cash flow rerouted, old alliances pressured. It wasn't chaos, it was preparation. "He's building something," Elena said. "Not a hit, a takeover." Maya leaned forward. "He's trying to make you react publicly, force mistakes." "Yes," her father agreed, "which means we don't." "Then what do we do?" Maya asked. Her father hesitated. That alone told her the answer would be costly. "We let him think he's winning." The plan unfolded slowly, deliberately. Territory ceded without resistance. Accounts frozen, then unfrozen. Loyal men reassigned in ways that looked like retreat. Salerno took the bait. His confidence grew, his movements less careful. Days passed. Tension built. Maya stayed busy, learning routes, faces, patterns. She met the people who actually kept the operation alive. Drivers, accountants, women who never raised their voices but controlled entire districts with a phone call. Power didn't always look like violence. Sometimes it looked like patience. Late one night, Elena brought Maya a folder. "You should see this." Inside were photos, dates, hospital records. "Salerno's son," Elena said. "Died 16 years ago. Same month you were born." Maya's breath caught. "What?" "Car fire," Elena continued. "Officially an accident. Unofficially, it wasn't." Maya felt the pieces shift. "My mother," she whispered. "St. Jude." "Yes," Elena said. "She was there the night it happened. She treated a boy pulled from the wreck. And Salerno believes that you lived because his son didn't," Elena finished. The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. This wasn't about territory, or pride, or even revenge. It was grief looking for a target. Maya took the folder to her father. He read it in silence, his face hardening with every page. When he finished, he closed it carefully. "I didn't know," he said. "But Salerno thinks you did," Maya replied. "Yes, and he thinks I'm proof." Her father nodded. "He thinks fate chose wrong." Maya stood. "Then let me talk to him." The room went still. "No," her father said immediately. "He won't listen to you," Maya replied. "I'm the symbol he's chasing. Let me end that." "You don't negotiate with men like Salerno," her father snapped. Maya didn't raise her voice. "You don't. I do." Silence stretched. Finally he asked, "What would you say?" Maya swallowed. "The truth." 2 nights later the meeting was arranged. Neutral ground, an abandoned rail depot on the edge of the city. No weapons inside, limited guards. It was madness. Maya walked in alone. Salerno waited near the tracks, older than she expected, his face carved by years of power and loss. When he saw her, something flickered. Not hatred, recognition. "You look like her," he said. "My mother," Maya replied. "Yes." "I didn't kill your son," Maya said immediately. "And neither did my father." Salerno's jaw tightened. "You lived," he said. "He didn't." "I know," Maya replied, "and I carry that weight every day without knowing why. Now I do." She stepped closer. "My mother tried to save him. She held his hand when no one else would. She cried when he died. She didn't take anything from you." Salerno's breath hitched. "Just once." "This ends tonight," Maya said. "Not with blood, with truth." For a long moment, Salerno said nothing. Then he laughed softly, broken. "I wanted someone to pay," he admitted, "and you were alive." Maya nodded. "I still am. And I'm standing here." He looked at her, really looked, and something in his posture collapsed. "Get out of my city," he said finally. "Both of you." Maya didn't smile. "We already live here." When she left the depot, dawn was breaking again. The war didn't end with a gunshot. It ended with a man letting go. And Maya knew that whatever came next, she had crossed the final line. The city didn't celebrate peace, it never did. It simply adjusted, absorbing the absence of conflict the same way it absorbed everything else. Quietly, indifferently. Maya felt that indifference most sharply in the days that followed the meeting with Salerno. There were no headlines, no visible shifts, no clear signal that a war had almost erupted and then dissolved in a single conversation beside rusted tracks. But beneath the surface everything had changed. Salerno kept his word. His men withdrew, first subtly, then completely. Routes reopened, pressure vanished. The kind of calm that followed wasn't relief. It was recalibration. Power redistributed itself, looking for a new equilibrium. Maya watched it happen from inside the compound, no longer as an observer, but as a participant. People sought her out now, not out of fear, but respect. They spoke more carefully around her, weighed their words. She understood why, and it unsettled her. Authority had attached itself to her without asking permission. Her father noticed it too. "You changed the board," he said one evening, as they stood in the courtyard, the air cool and clean. "Not many people ever do." "I didn't mean to," Maya replied. "That's why it worked," he said. "You weren't trying to win, you were trying to end something." They had been speaking more since that night. Not about operations or strategy, but about things that had been buried for years. Her childhood, his mistakes, the choices that had seemed necessary at the time and unforgivable in hindsight. "I thought distance would keep you innocent," he admitted once. "Instead, it made you strong in ways I couldn't control." Maya looked at him then, really looked, and saw a man confronting the limits of his own power. "You don't get to control who I become," she said gently. "I only get to decide whether you stand with me." He nodded. That answer seemed to cost him something, but he accepted it. Elena approached Maya later that night with an offer. Not from the bishop, from the organization itself. "They want you involved," Elena said, formally. Maya didn't pretend surprise. "In what way? Advisory? Liaison? Someone who can see beyond the reflex for violence?" Maya considered it carefully. "And if I say no, then they'll still orbit you," Elena replied. "Influence doesn't vanish just because you refuse it." Maya understood that better than anyone now. She asked to see her mother. The reunion was quiet. No dramatic revelations. Just a long embrace in their small apartment, the familiar smell of coffee and laundry detergent grounding her. Renee looked older, more tired, but still unbreakable. "He knows," Renee said softly. "Yes," Maya replied. Renee exhaled. "I hoped you'd never have to carry that." "I carry it differently," Maya said. "Not as shame, as truth." They talked late into the night, about St. Jude, about the boy in the wreck, about the choice Renee made to walk away rather than raise a child in the shadow of violence. "You did the right thing," Maya said firmly. Renee smiled sadly. "I don't know if there was a right thing, only the least harmful." Maya kissed her forehead before leaving, understanding that protection sometimes meant leaving and sometimes meant returning. Back at the compound, the bishop made his own decision. He dismantled parts of the organization that thrived on excess, cut loose men who saw violence as entertainment, redirected resources. It wasn't redemption, it was restraint. And in his world, that was revolutionary. Some resisted, a few left. None challenged him openly, because Maya was watching now. One night, as they sat together in the war room that no longer felt like a battlefield, her father spoke quietly. "I won't always be here." "I know," Maya said. "And when I'm gone—" She stopped him with a look. "Don't build my future on your absence," she said. "If I stay, it will be by choice, not inheritance." He studied her. "And if you leave, then you'll have to live with the fact that you raised someone strong enough to walk away." That, she knew, was the hardest truth he would ever face. The city settled into its new shape. Salerno faded into memory. Luca was exiled quietly, stripped of influence, his ambition rendered useless without allies. No spectacle, no revenge, just consequence. Maya stood on the edge of the compound one morning, watching the sun rise over a city that would never know her name. She felt something unexpected then. Peace. Not because everything was safe, but because everything was finally honest. She turned back toward the building, toward her father, toward the choices ahead. The ending was close now. And this time, she would decide how it was written. The morning Maya decided to leave, the city appeared almost merciful. From the balcony of the compound, Chicago stretched beneath her in soft gray and pale gold, a living body waking up without any awareness of how close it had come to tearing itself apart. Traffic lights blinked lazily. Trains rattled along their tracks. People hurried toward jobs, obligations, small dreams, and quiet disappointments. None of them knew her name. None of them needed to. For the first time since she had walked into that private room at the steakhouse and pointed at a table full of men who could have erased her existence with a gesture, Maya felt something close to peace. Not the fragile kind that depended on guards and walls, but the solid kind that came from knowing she had faced the truth and survived it without losing herself. She rested her hand against the cold metal railing and breathed in deeply. The air smelled like rain and concrete, familiar and distant all at once. The necklace lay warm against her skin, the small worn coin no longer heavy with unanswered questions. It had become a marker instead, a reminder of everything that had led her here. Her mother's silence, her father's fear, a boy who had died too young, and a war that had ended not with blood, but with words spoken at the right moment. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn. She recognized the weight, the rhythm, the pause before the final step. "You're leaving today," her father said. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a command. It was acceptance. "Yes," Maya answered. Her voice didn't shake. "I am." He joined her at the railing, his hands folded, his gaze fixed on the city he had spent decades shaping from the shadows. In the daylight, stripped of urgency and threat, he looked different. Older, yes, but also quieter. Less like the bishop the world feared, and more like the man who had once stood outside a hospital chapel, afraid of loving too much and losing everything. "For good?" he asked. Maya considered the question carefully. This time she didn't answer out of defiance or distance. "For now," she said. "I don't want to disappear. I just don't want to belong to anything I didn't choose." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." The word hung between them, unfamiliar but honest. Fairness had never been the rule in his world. Survival had been, control had been, fear had been. Fairness was something Maya had brought into his life like an unexpected language, forcing him to learn it late and imperfectly. "I didn't bring you here to inherit my life," he said after a moment. "I brought you here because I didn't know how to let go of it." Maya turned toward him then. The lines on his face were deeper in the morning light, not just from age, but from consequence. Each one carried a decision, a compromise, a moment when power had felt safer than honesty. "You didn't know another way," she said quietly. "That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." He exhaled, a long breath he seemed to have been holding for years. "You changed me," he said, "more than any enemy ever could." "I didn't come here to change you," Maya replied. "That's why it happened," he said. "You weren't trying to win, you were trying to end something." They stood together as the city continued its indifferent rhythm. The absence of violence felt strange, almost louder than the chaos had been. No alarms, no hurried footsteps, no tension humming beneath the walls. The kind of calm that didn't announce itself, but settled slowly like dust after a storm no one would speak about again. Inside the compound, the consequences of her choice were already unfolding. The organization hadn't collapsed. It had adjusted. Power always did. Her father had begun dismantling pieces of it with surgical precision, not out of guilt but out of clarity. Men who thrived on excess and cruelty found themselves quietly removed from influence. Operations that relied on intimidation were restructured, redirected, restrained. It wasn't redemption. Maya never allowed herself that illusion. Too much harm had been done for that word to fit, but it was accountability, applied in the only way his world understood. And in that world, accountability was radical. Elena had stepped naturally into a broader role without ceremony or ambition. She didn't demand authority. She earned it by consistency. People listened to her not because they feared punishment, but because her decisions made sense. Maya admired that more than any display of dominance she had witnessed since arriving. Before leaving, Maya walked the compound one final time, not to say goodbye, but to close the loop in her own mind. The halls no longer felt threatening. They also didn't feel welcoming. They felt complete. She paused outside the war room. The screens were dark now, the space silent. She remembered standing there when the alarms had first sounded, realizing that knowledge was heavier than ignorance, and that survival demanded more than courage. It demanded responsibility. She remembered the night of gunfire echoing through the building, the controlled chaos, the way fear had sharpened her focus instead of breaking it. She remembered understanding, in that moment, that there was no going back to who she had been before, only forward, into someone she would choose deliberately. She passed the holding wing without stopping. Luca was gone. He had been exiled quietly weeks earlier, stripped of allies, influence, and relevance. There had been no dramatic punishment, no public reckoning, just absence. And Maya understood now that absence was the most complete erasure of all. Back in her room, she packed slowly, intentionally, not out of hesitation, but respect for what she was leaving behind. She folded clothes that felt like her, not the version of herself this place had tried to shape. She left behind anything that tied her to obligation instead of choice. She kept the essentials: a notebook, her phone, the necklace. As she zipped the bag closed, a tightness formed in her chest that surprised her. It wasn't regret. It wasn't longing. It was gratitude for having survived, for having been given the truth before it was too late, for having had the strength to walk away without burning everything behind her. Her father waited near the exit. No guards, no advisors, just the two of them, standing in a quiet space that no longer felt like a fortress. "I won't pretend I don't want you here," he said, "but I won't ask you to stay." "That's the first time anyone's ever given me that choice," Maya replied. He reached into his jacket and handed her a small envelope. Inside was a single card with a number written neatly in ink. "For when you don't want protection," he said, "but you want honesty." She smiled faintly. "You're learning." "Late," he admitted, but sincerely. They embraced, brief, real. No dramatic words pressed between them. Some truths didn't need repetition to exist. Her mother waited for her beyond the city, parked near a stretch of road where concrete gave way to trees and open sky. Renee stepped out of the car when she saw Maya approach, her expression calm, steady, and deeply familiar. "You ready?" her mother asked. "Yes," Maya said, and this time the word carried no doubt. They drove away without looking back. The skyline faded into the distance, replaced by open road and the quiet hum of motion. With every mile, Maya felt lighter, not because she was escaping something, but because she was finally moving toward herself. The months that followed were not dramatic. They were intentional. Maya enrolled in a program out of state, choosing a path that felt grounded and real. She changed her last name not to erase her past, but to define her future without inherited shadows. She built routines that didn't revolve around fear or anticipation. She made friends who knew nothing about crime families, territory, or power plays, people who judged her by how she listened, how she showed up, how she chose to live. She visited her father occasionally, always by choice, always on her terms. Their conversations grew easier over time. They spoke about books, about cities they had never seen, about the strange relief that came from letting go of control you no longer needed to prove. Her mother watched the transformation quietly. One evening, over coffee in their small kitchen, Renee smiled and said, "You're lighter." "So are you," Maya replied. The necklace remained with her always, not as a burden, as a reminder of St. Jude, of a boy whose life had ended too soon, of a grieving man who had finally let go, of the moment truth ended something violence never could. Chicago continued to live its life, unaware of how close it had come to bleeding for reasons it would never understand. The city didn't thank her. It didn't remember her. And that was exactly how Maya wanted it. She had walked into a world built on fear and refused to let it define her. She had stood between men shaped by loss and forced them to see each other as human, not monsters. She had chosen honesty over inheritance, peace over power, and intention over inevitability. And in doing so, she had ended the story the only way that truly mattered, not with blood, but with freedom. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.